Lucy. Marcel Wanders, welcome to Design and Dialogue.
Nice to meet you, Glenn. Nice to meet all of you. Thanks.
Amazing to have you here. Do let us know where you're zooming in from, audience, and then, as Lucy said, put your questions in the chat box. We will get back to them at the end. Marcel, obviously you're calling in from the Netherlands. Where else?
I am.
Yeah, good to see you. What kind of year have you had in this crazy 2020 that we've had?
Well, I must say it's the beautiful thing that I feel is that, you know, we're in this together. I mean, it's hardly ever that you're in a situation with so many people, and it kind of ties us together if you want, right? You don't have to, but it kind of it's kind of that what makes me happy about it. For the rest, of course, it's a nightmare, and we have to go through this all together. There's not too many beautiful things to say about it. A lot of stuff gets broken. There's a lot of pain, and as well personal as also economic situations. Creativity is finding ways, but you know it comes with prices, and so it's a tough time. But there's nothing new about that. So yeah, what I think also is really annoying that it's hard to look forward, because I've seen my mind wander over the last half year from total panic to being totally at ease, to seeing clearly what has happened in 5 months and not knowing at all what I have to do today. So it's been a roller coaster, and it makes it difficult to project the future or to solve issues that are in the future. But I think like companies that we advise, let's say hotel, we advise them, you know, to forget that they're a multinational, but to think of their business as local, and to have people locally adapt to the rules that are locally present, and to adapt to the idea that maybe, you know, you have to just solve the problems that are now on the street and do something and it's different in every place. And the same is maybe also that, you know, maybe today we have to solve the problems of today as designers, not only think about like what happens in 5 years, but maybe what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
What should happen tomorrow?
Well,
and so I think that's maybe interesting about it. So to think local and to think about what can happen today.
Well, you know, we're going to get back to today.
But we start in the past.
We're going to start by going back ways and thinking about not yesterday, but years ago, the beginning of your career. And so the audience knows, we're going to be going through these images rather quickly and as a kind of loose backdrop to what we're saying, rather than speaking to each image individually. But I think it might help, Marcel, just
it's wallpaper,
what your trajectory was as you entered the design world, and what your initial intentions and motivations were as you chose it as a profession.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting image, because it reflects really well who I was when I started my design career. I mean, I wrote a little story in the year that I finished school. And the year I finished school, I wrote this story about a little baker that was used to bake bread with a nice hard crust. And that baker, over the years, had decided to make the crust of the bread more soft, so people wouldn't complain about bleeding gum, and they had to cut the crust for old people because they couldn't eat it and stuff like that. So the baker had innovated, and so the bread was better. But while doing this, I mean, we have this thing in Northern Europe that if kids don't want to eat the bread, the hard crust of the bread, then moms say, well, you can't learn how to whistle if you don't eat the bread. So at some point in this village, a kid just walks in the street and hears this weird sound, and he finds out that the baker is blowing on his mouth, and some beautiful sounds coming from it. And so He tells his mom, and soon after, the whole community wants to have this bread again, so because they want to whistle. And so it's a story about innovation that I write on the day, more or less, that I finish school, and I'm the most aggressive design fucker that you can imagine. I want to go forward. I want to change everything. But in the same time, I write that story. And it, to me, is like, if I look back on it, I think it's amazing that as an aggressive kid, there was that kind of understanding that there was things we could lose that were more important than what we could win. And that, you know, we need to look back if we look forward. We can take beauty with us on our path. And it was kind of, and this is also a beautiful example of it, is it's a vase that I made, I think 3-4 years out of school, and it's two classic vases from my country. As you see, it's very detailed. The glazing is in two different versions, and there's these two just carved stones on it. So it's a very simple structure. It's very innovative in its setup, but it looks like a Japanese vase on a little cabinet, and it's as pure and beautiful as it can be. And it was interesting because I suggested for the Rotterdam Design Prize, and Rennie Ramakers, there was no Droog Design back then, she was in the jury, and she saw that this was a great piece, and so it became shortlisted for the National Design Prize, which of course, for this piece of crap in those days, people could not see that. So it was a disaster. The papers, it's like they couldn't write enough about this thing that was so like impossible to be even called design, and it was so like not what we should do. And of course, obviously we didn't win the prize also, but it was amazing that, you know, it was, yeah, in the world of design that was so like rationale. This was such a, yeah, soft and yeah, generous object in a way. Anyway, so yeah, so that was kind of my start.
Do you think, Marcel, that the softness and the aggression were in some way the same thing? Because you were talking about the early aggression that you had entering.
Well, the softness to get a place, it needed my aggression to be visible, and to be understood at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
In that way, but they are different things, and that polarity, I think you can find it in my work. It will stay in the work, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start our whistle-stop tour of visuality. Yeah. But as we look at these images, could you say a little bit about the situation that you were entering at that time? So we've gotten a little bit of your vantage point, but of course, this is the miraculous moment for Dutch design.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think what was interesting is that we were doing something that was different. We didn't want to just dress up things. It's not the Dutch way to dress up stuff. So we would not even, we would show skeletons more than dress. Like with the Italians, they dress up and it's all wonderful, and then like, but then in a way the work was very pure and direct, and Rennie and Gijs were able to see it, and they presented it in Milano. And that was amazing, because in Milano, you went to Milan if you had a product, if you had something to sell. We had nothing to sell. So we showed the objects, we showed prototypes as if they were ready. In that time, that was impossible. But we did it anyhow. Now, in the same period, design, and so the work that we made was not so rational. It was conceptual, but it was also very personal, right? It became more personal than the generation before. And in the same time, there was kind of design started to explode, to be ubiquitous, to be bigger. and to be communicated around the world, because magazines started to be international. So in big international magazines, what did they need? They needed something that had communication quality. And on average, a chair, the design generation before us, they wrote about the chair, how it was made. And, it can be nice to know it if you're an engineer, but the rest of the world couldn't care less. And we had stories, we had personal stories about the objects we made. So in a way, our designs were virtual, because they didn't even exist, they were prototypes. But everything that you'd need to think about the design, to understand the design, to feel something was in it. It was just not something that would fit in a box and go around the world in shops. But so the designs were there. They were easy to transport around the world because they were not even real. And the world of communication really needed those works that were so much more inspiring than the typical chair that would only explain itself by how it was produced. And so that was I believe that we invented, if you want to say, the virtual design, a design that does everything for an audience except, be in a shop and be sellable. But, that is the least part of a real design. Most designs that you like and have seen and thought about, wrote about, you never own them. So a very little part, but not the chair. I've been calculating how many times it's printed and therefore seen. It's billions. So the importance of the chair compared to the importance of the photograph, I think the photograph is way more important than the piece.
Yeah,
there's like 1,000 pieces. We made thousands of. There's 1,000 pieces. People that maybe have it. There's 1 billion people that have seen it, and a lot of them have thought about it and felt something.
How were you? Because you said we were doing this, but of course you had a very significant individual touch already at that.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about your individual stature or goals as a designer in contrast to the larger group?
I mean, as a group, we were not so much of a group. I mean, of course, if you would compare us, to 20 Italians, we were different than them. But as a group, there was not too much coherence. I mean, Gijs and Rennie, they had this idea that they saw something in the world that we were making, and there was something there. But we didn't work together. We didn't work on an idea together. But we just made our own work, and yeah, it was not so that we were all big friends and we met each other and we had drinks together. We met each other once, twice, 3 times a year for an exhibition or maybe a conversation, but not so much. So yeah, in a way, it's also interesting if you look back on this period. What I think also, because back then, the communication that was given with these works, right? Well, if you read back on it, there's a type of narrative that's always there. If in hindsight you look at it now, and you look also to the people that were most influential for what was happening, I think it's Hella, it's Jürgen, and it's me, probably, right? Maybe people would argue, but let's presume. If you see the work of these 3 people, once it matures, like in the years 2000, if you see how it matures, you see, and you look with that knowledge, you look to those years, you see that something very different was happening. There was something very different happening. If you see the work of these 3 people, and you think, what did they do in the years 2000, and what was already present there? We were getting ready to make that work.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. In hindsight, it could be an interesting study to see what really happened. At the end, I mean, I think, and that's why I speak about we, because there's an individual aspect to it, but there's an aspect of togetherness here. What was really special is that we had an audience and we had a type of product that was, we made a type of design that was so much more interesting to communicate about. Whether the stories are better or worse. I mean, they were visually interesting, they were rationally interesting, they were emotionally interesting. There was a lot to see, a lot to speak about. And I think our generation before, I mean, the stories are rational and so interesting maybe for engineers, but not for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's what today is, I mean, or since then has been happening. I mean, I think, yeah.
So let's talk about that moment of acceleration then. You mentioned Jürgen Bay, Hella Jongerius, who we've also had on the show, as well as, by the way, Randy Ramaker's both been on.
Of course.
So we've been able to tell this story a couple of times in different ways. But when we get to your, what I want to call your takeoff period, which we could date in different ways, but there's an incredible breadth that enters your practice. So we're not now thinking about conceptual or speculative or poetic design. We're thinking about interiors, we're thinking about branding, we're thinking about corporate collaboration work, we're talking about art direction. It becomes almost like an empire, your world. And I really would like to know what that was like for you, what the challenges were, what the satisfactions were, and what that kind of scale brought to you as a creative person.
I mean, for me, it's like, I love to do the things that I can't do. And I think I'm best at the things I can't. Because it makes me look in, it makes me have to solve problems that I didn't see before. And I think you learn if you are challenge yourself in new areas. And it is around 2000, I decided, let's start doing interior design, because I thought it was just like the same but bigger, and I thought this is interesting. It turned out when I was doing this that, you know, everything that I designed looked really boring, and so the whole idea of interior design was so different, and I really had to find a new philosophy in myself that could work for that, and it became a very different thing. And so my language and my vocabulary, but also my thinking really had to change. And for a while, it was hard for me to explain even what I did, because I was searching and I didn't know. And I think the same goes for other areas of interest. I like to work with clients because they allow you to do something that alone you wouldn't do. I would by now be really bored about my design activity if I never had clients. If you don't have clients, then everything has to come from you. And I think that in a way, the products that we make, the products that we do, they are my babies. And so to make them well, I have a client that I like, that I think is amazing and smart and has capacities that I don't have. And there's me. And if we both put our best foot forward, then the genetic formula of that baby has the quality of me and the client. If that comes together in a good way, I think you have the chance to do something extraordinary. If I just multiply my own genetic code, then at some point you're basically maybe done. And so for me, working together has always been interesting. And if I sit around on the table with someone, I'm really trying to understand the problem and the possibilities. I really try to understand what is this client scared of and what is he excited about, because I want to do a really great job. I really want to make sure that we're all work as a team, and this team is going to be successful, it's going to be great, and we're going to be happy. By doing so, over time, I always felt that the ultimate proof of really understanding a client is becoming the client. And so that's why at some point I started Moy. One of the reasons I started Moy, Because if you understand your client really well, then basically maybe you should take the risk or try to prove that you understand it and just do it. And that's why I built my own hotel. And so that is my personal growth. Not only my creative growth, but my personal growth is, to me, is leading. I get bored if I don't grow for a week. If I don't learn something for a week, I'm going to do something else, because I just hate that. I really want to find a way to grow, and in all kinds of different directions, because it's just growth multiplies with growth. So I really always try to find new areas of growth, and so obviously it was nice to always find a new type of client, a new type of project, a new type of product, and to search for things I never did before. And I think that journey is still on.
Do you think that, if I can ask the question in a kind of provocative way, do you think that you have a kind of self-interest in using your clients as a way of building your own aesthetic empire?
Yes, I use my clients, but not to. I think my aesthetic is. I'm not. The reason that I'm doing is not because I have an aesthetic wish that I have to prove. Because the things that I do, and you know it, but you'll see it if you go to these images. I mean, the aesthetic, at least it looks that it can go everywhere. Yeah. And it is not really that way. But if I get a quest, I dive into that quest, and I'm trying to find a way to solve that thing best. And people are afraid. Other designers are afraid that they lose themselves. They're afraid that what they will do is not them. I know extremely deep in every fiber that if I could do something that is not me, I would immediately do it. Why not? Just to try. But I can't. It's like trying to be someone else, not to act like someone else. Try to be someone else. There's no way you can do it. I'm not afraid to be another part of myself. I'm afraid to be the smallest version of myself. I'm not the guy that says, "Well, this is not me." No, I would never do such a thing. I would never use pink. I would never do something red. I would never. I would like to look at myself as a person that say, "Well, if I can reach it, maybe it's me, and maybe it is me." So I would love to define myself large, instead to define myself small.
Yeah.
Because I know that if it is in my control, if I can be a part of the momentum and the movement, then I can put my interest there. And then I did quite a lot of things that are not so Marcel Wanders, but they're great things. And I don't have to. I've worked in teams a lot where the team has a language, the team has an interest, my client has a wish, and I'm happy to give it to them. Not everything that I have made has to scream Marcel Wanders. Me, I scream Marcel Wanders wherever I show up, because it's me. But if you work in a team, if you work with other people, then you have to be a little bit humble, maybe.
Yeah. Can I ask you about the idea of theatricality? Before we started the broadcast, you were telling me a little about your father, who was a sort of operatic personality, it sounds like. And I feel like you've inherited that for sure. So this image we're looking at right now, and some of the ones that will be coming up, demonstrate this incredible kind of scenographic instinct that you have. It's again storytelling, but it's sheer.
Yeah, well, let me go back in time a little bit. When I was 25 or so, 26 maybe, my then girlfriend, she became very ill, and to the extent that she had breast cancer twice and the whole enchilada. And for 7 years, my life was a wonderful nightmare. It was also great, but it was also a nightmare. And so in this period, we were trying to survive. We were trying to understand what to do. And the typical, the typical way that you go through hospitals. And so we felt that's all important, but it's not enough. There is more that we can do and have to do. And so we started a journey that made us grow as people and made us stronger as people. We did a lot of different courses on self-empowerment and spirituality. And so I did with her, we studied for 7 years straight on all kinds of stuff. And so in that period, also, I started to understand the world in a more profound and holistic way. And I started to see that the world of design back then, today is better, back then, it was also a very rational world. It was very rational. And in a way, the world that I was trying to build in my personal life was more holistic. And back then you would call it New Age. There was a different sensitivities were necessary. And so when I was saying to my girlfriend at some point, oh, I feel so alone in the design world. No, I can have no conversation with about all these things I care about so much. Then my girlfriend says, well, you can find them, but how can they find you? And so I wrote a book. I wrote a book on design. And in that book, there was, if in hindsight, there were 10 major topics. And 3 were about communication. 3 subjects were about communication. It's like an object is nothing. Nothing. This chair will never reach your heart, and it will never reach your brain. And that's a good thing, because you'll be dead if you have a chair in your brain. It will never reach you. Everything you know, feel, smell, have tasted about it, what people have said, the movie it was in, everything will possibly reach you and have a little influence on the gray mass. Now that is the work. That is the work. The chair is the instrument. The work is what you will give to people, what will reach them really, to the heart, to the head. And so it is essential that we find a way to bring stuff home, to bring it home to people. Because the chair is nothing. It is what it represents, what you think of it, what you can, all these wonderful roads we have to our brain, through our nose, through our ears, to our conscious knowledge, to our spirit, through our spirituality. All these things, all these channels make it possible to understand the world. And it is our task as designers to fill those channels with wonderful things. Not with things, with wonderful things.
So Marcel, can I ask you a question on that exact line of thinking, which is a question about desire? So we're just seeing here a couple of images that use the nude body and this idea of a kind of performance of sexuality, I guess, might be one way of saying it. And you're working in a sphere in which desire, either consumer desire or what you're describing, a kind of primary psychological desire, is being manipulated all the time.
And I should have known this. We're talking in an American channel, right? Maybe I should have given you the Puritan versions of the work. If you go one back, then you'll see that, you know, we were one back. No, yeah, this one. I mean, we were talking about how communication and information about things is critical to things. When I started Noi, we were a company so big, and we wanted to make sure that people are excited about what we do. And so we were making a catalog, and I didn't want to do a catalog which is full of chairs and sofas, because I know people want to see themselves. People want to see people because they want to see themselves. So we made, this is shots that we did with the Aaron Olaf, and we made, of this one, we made, I think, 25 through the years. And we call them our superhero. No, we call these double portraits. It's a portrait of a nude product and a nude person. And so here you see two ones that are really maybe cute, but there's also a very old woman and a very old gentleman standing with a table or chair. There's an identical twin is the one that there's a naked dog. So the concept was to make super iconic shots that are portraits of objects and people, and to put them together in an incredible way. These two are probably the most pretty ones of them, as in per people. So nudity was, the products are nude, the people are nude, so that was the idea. In the other version, we wanted to do design in the box. So not outside the box. It was always outside the box. We did this. And also here we made all kinds of people with all kinds of skin tones, like everybody was included. All kinds of people were included. It was not models. We never used the model. It was only people. Anyway, so that's what we did. And for us, it was a way to show our excitement for creativity and for visual quality, and to show that we are not a company that has a catalog full of chairs, but we have a catalog full of life and full of excitement and full of interesting images.
I get all that. It's really interesting to hear that story, but I was actually asking for a slightly different reason, which is about your role as somebody who is affecting the psychology of other people in ways that they may or may not even be aware of. I mean, this is quite straightforward on one level, but also there's a lot of subliminal channels. There's a lot of effect that your work or any designer's work has when it goes out into the world. And I guess I'm wondering about your thoughts about that, not sex per se, but the question of affecting other people's desires and mental landscape.
I think what in the work that we do, I mean, the one thing that I think, if you want to find something that is always there in the whole variety of the work, then I think it is that you feel that the things that you see are loved. I think love is the subliminal message of everything we do. I truly believe that whatever comes from our hand, you will feel that maybe you don't love it, but it was made with love. I really, nothing goes out of my studio that doesn't resonate that for me. And that is something that if you want to find something that is a subliminal message that's everywhere, I think that's everywhere. There might be others. There's that notion of depth. I mean, I think we were pretty alone, each of us, and with smaller families and less tight communities, and I share. I love it to go to Rijksmuseum and to see the paintings that were made in my city, and I feel connected to it. I feel less alone because these painters are my family. So it's that kind of the beautiful idea that you are part of something big. I think that is something that hopefully also transcends from the work that we do.
Okay. So maybe now we could talk a little bit about these spatial experiments and projects that you're taking on. So here we have one that's more, it strikes me more sculptural, more like an art
Yeah.
installation, but we'll also see some interiors coming up. And
Yeah.
I would love to hear you talk about your handling of space going from the object to the environment.
Yeah, here we were asked to do a sculpture for a museum in Oita in Japan, and yeah, we wanted to do something that was that people could have a connection with. That is not just something that stands in the middle of a space and then you can look at it, but something that is more interactive, but not in a technocratic way, but in an interactive object that you could have a connection to, not only from looking at it or feeling something, but just like you do something. And so we made these like big sculptures, and they are decorated with patterns that as well have hints of faces, as also they are uh, almost like gardens on themselves. So it's like outdoor, indoor garden, flowers, east, west, object, face, uh, me maybe, or you.
Mm.
Because everything that's an elliptical egg, I think, is a self-portrait like this one. In a way, I think if we see people, we always see ourselves, because we always compare ourselves with others. That's why we like to look at people. We like to look at faces. So they are faces, they are natural sculptures, and then you can go near to them, and then maybe someone gives them a little push and they start moving. And so these 7 objects in the space, and these are objects of 7 meter, which is like 22 feet or something like it. So they're big, and so they're standing in this space, very clean, white, beautiful space, typical architectural space, let's say it that way. And then there's these, yeah, weird ghosts that are playful also in a way. So this is one project that we did. I mean, we did a lot of interior design through the years. Yeah, I think at the end that interaction is always kind of important. Now, most things that we do have interaction given, like chair you sit on, the stairs you walk on. We make even stairs where there's no need for it, like this stairs. Nobody has to go up because the stair goes nowhere. But it's always busy. There's always people on that stairs, and they walk up, they make a selfie, they enjoy themselves. Maybe there's always people talking there. So it's wonderful, and everybody knows that it goes to nothing, but still they use it. So it's an interactive concept in a way. We try to make spaces where there's always a lot of contrast and a lot of excitement, and where there's a lot of ideas. I think space needs a lot of ideas to take people on a journey. We always try to make them, give them a sense of locale. I mean, objects that we make, often they go everywhere, but our spaces go nowhere. They have no feet. They're just an expression of locale. And so that's, for us, always the biggest inspiration is, where is it? Where are we? If I fly to Washington, do I feel I'm in Washington, or do I feel I'm in Amsterdam still? Because that would be a bummer. Mm-hmm. So this is in Amsterdam, and you kind of have no other way to, you have to understand you're in Amsterdam.
Where else could
I love that. I love that.
You started the conversation by telling that story about the bread and the whistling, which struck me like a fairy tale. And I was wondering whether that aspect of mythology and placing somebody in a space that feels imbued by a kind of magic or enchantment is important for you.
Well, I think I think people are storytellers. Before we designed stuff, we were telling stories, right? We were sitting around the fire and we tell stories to each other, and we kind of understand the world because of it. And then I think the things that we make, the products, the art that we make, if it doesn't tell a story, I'm not sure if it could be interesting. I'm not, never made it that clear. But the great works have a story. There's something beautiful about saying. And a lot of work that we all know became more interesting when we heard the story. Mm. And this a story is a visual story, can sometimes just be look at it, but it can be an emotional story, it can be a spiritual story, it can be, stories come in endless ways, right? But I think if you are able to open up your own vocabulary of stories, you have the chance to reach more people. And I think it's not my interest to reach more people, but it's my interest not to exclude people. And so I want to do stories that have all these aspects, because there are people that are merely informed by the world with their eyes. There are people that are merely informed by the world by rationale. There are people that are merely informed by the world by tactile, by their tactile senses. And so I want to make sure that in everything I do, all these people get value for their experience. There's something for them also. And so we try to find ways to look at everything we do through these lenses.
It's also interesting that you're using some very essential design capabilities like color and scale in very surprising ways. I find that very striking about your work, particularly your interiors, that they, in some ways, as lavish and progressive as they are, maybe would be a good word, they also are using this kind of fundamental design DNA, like the first things that you would hear about as a designer when you're going to school. So that's still a big part of your repertoire.
Well, it's interesting to understand that, like there's quite some possibilities that are unused, and one of them is scale. I mean, I think scale is one of these beautiful things that a designer can use in its vocabulary that a lot of people don't use. And I think it's a pity. The scale is impressive.
Yeah.
So to make things small or to make things big instead of on the real size, I think it's a magic. I mean, interesting. So I've been said to make a lot of things that are oversized and big, and it's right. I've also done a lot of things that are very small. That's right, smaller than they should be, or just make two things where one is a bit bigger than the other instead of the same size. Yeah. The first one of the first lamps you've seen, the big shadow, if it's white, it's like 2 meters and 2. If it's colored like red, it's 196, so it's 6 centimeters smaller. It's like, they just, it's just beautiful if they put them together. So it's like, it's a very detailed idea. But for instance, now we did a book on the Rijksmuseum. I took the image out because I didn't want to see it, but it's nice to see. We made a book on the artwork of the 17th century of the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. In that book, we have, of course, if you look at the night watch, you have the whole picture in the book. Boom, you can see the whole picture. Then, of course, if you go on the next page and next page, you see enlargements, because the technology we have today is amazing. You can do enlargement. Nothing special. We shrink it to make it everything visible. We blow it up to see things we couldn't see before. But what's special in the book is that of every image, there is a one-on-one image. So we go to the painting, we take the size of the book, and we cut it, and we print it on 100%. Mm. Now that, I'm the guy that makes everything big? No. 100%. It's never been done in the making of art books.
Mm.
Photos have no size. Paintings have size. And even though you cannot show me one art book where the images of the paintings are to the 100% representations. None. And I speak about it loudly because I hope one day someone will say, you're wrong, there's this book. It didn't happen yet, and the book is like 4 years old now.
So there's
it's amazing. Scale is a subject. Scale is an unnoticed subject.
Okay, so let's now turn to our last topic before we open up.
Yeah, the last topic.
Which is
after yeah, this is I'm sorry. Please.
Last topic is yourself in many ways. So we're now going to the exhibition that you did at Friedman Benda a few years ago called Portraits, which I always think of as a very introspective, very personal, and again, very psychological project. So perhaps you could talk us a little bit about why you decided to do this and how it feels now.
Yeah, so the design for me is and has always been a force for good. It is a concept that tries to show love, share love, show the beautiful things in life, and make life better. And so after, let's say, 20 years of work, if I look at myself, I Google myself, I see a wide, beautiful, fresh world of beauty and love and fantastic ideas. and I think of myself as an honest person. So I start to think maybe there's something wrong there, because there's way more to life. And if I want to be full and complete, and I want to just share what I really think and what I feel, there's maybe something missing. But the podium of design is not the right podium to express it. Because I don't want to do, let's say, my sadness on the back of a pack of cornflakes. I just don't think that's the place to annoy people, one, or to have a conversation that is good for me also. So for that conversation, I need another audience that is interested in that conversation, and I want to find a podium for that. So one of the things that really was very important for me in that notion was also this one. I made a hotel in Miami. It was the first big property that we designed, and in everything we do, durability, sustainability, but durability in this context is super important. It's like we really try to make things in such a way that these things can be loved forever, and we make them so they're loved, and we want them to be loved forever. And so this hotel was finished in 2008 when we had this crash, and suddenly there was no money for nothing, because this hotel was built for timeshare, and instead of selling 80% that they did, nothing was bankable, and at the end they sold, I think, 5%. So the hotel had a bit of a financial situation, but it was busy, and it was a party place, and people loved the place. And so after 2-3 years time, I went to the hotel, and it was kind of, stuff was broken, stuff was dirty, it was not nice, and it wasn't loved anymore. And I felt it, and I started complaining. I started to talk and all kinds of stuff. And so it was the Mandarin Hotel here, as you see the left corner. And so I got really annoyed, and so for 2-3 years we were trying to push to get the operator to show some love to our baby, and to make sure that we can look at this place again and see that it's an amazing place. And so that didn't happen. And so at some point I went there dressed up as someone else, and I for 1.5 days I made photos around this place just because I felt so bad about it. And so when a bit later there was this big exhibition about my work in the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, and so that exhibition is me in the spotlight, and I sprinkle gold dust over myself because I'm so amazing. And I felt like I have to also show that I fail. I have to. I can't just only sprinkle gold dust on myself and think I'm amazing. I have to show where I fail and where my pain is. And so from these photos of that neglect and that I made this image, and it was the biggest. I printed it. It was like in feet. Maybe 10 feet by 20 feet. So it was the biggest object in the exhibition. Was this one, which really shows the pain and shows the tragedy. Because the biggest tragedy of it is not that the hotel is not kept well, but that I, tomorrow, am going to do a new hotel where it's probably also going to happen if the chance is there. And still we go on.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of pain inside and not the willingness to do everything about it. So it's that self-doubt that comes from it. Like, yeah, you say it, yeah. It's like, so it's those kind of things that are so crucial to the designer, right? You have an idea and you believe it's amazing, it's fantastic, and you're like 100% in until you find out that you're 2% not in. And for 2% you're like, yeah, let's go on, let's not talk about it. Let's go. Push back hard, but then tomorrow I'm going to do a new hotel, and it's not said that this is not going to happen again.
So that word disillusion, Mondrian disillusion, is very interesting here, because the show, and here we're seeing some video stills that were included in the exhibition, portraits exhibition. It was a fascinating combination of disillusionment and illusion at the same time. Very powerful visually, very fantastic, as we've talked about, but also with that kind of feeling of profound conflict, I guess, would be a good
I mean, these works, these are, you see now stills, but in fact they are videos. But the videos are almost stills because they move very little. I mean, nothing is really happening. So you're basically seeing a little movement of the light, maybe. These cars are the spots, so they move. And so there's a little bit moving. The water wrinkles, maybe some dust in the air. And then there's the absence of people, because you feel this is made for people, but you never see them. And you also feel, at least I hope, that these are extremely beautiful spaces, and you also feel that something is really bad here, right? There's something really fucked up here, and it's because we as designers, we get the chance to make things extremely beautiful, but the more chance we get to make things beautiful, the more we are needed to sell something that maybe is not so beautiful. Because beauty and power, they need each other. If Hitler had Adolf Speer, and Speer needed Adolf Hitler, because both needed each other, and I believe it's always that way. Someone buys a big art piece because he loves it, but because the neighbors, and because the pride and self-presentation, and not per se bad, but like you feel that there is that kind of we as designers, with all our love we give to the world, also we are on the payroll of power.
Mm.
And in these videos, you can feel that beauty and power are very near to each other, and there's that kind of yeah, we are all part of this. It's unescapable also, but it's there. And so this is a conversation about trying to be completely transparent and honest. So it's that kind of thing that we that this exhibition is about. Um, well, the shortest way to say it is the dark side of Marcel Wanders. It's not that. It's more that it's like, it's my doubt. It's my pain. It's my fear. It's my uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
It's that side, which is bigger than I've shown over time, because I don't think design is the podium. But I think I found the podium to express it, and I'm very, very happy with it, and grateful that Mark wanted to show this to the world, because it was meaningful to me.
Yeah, there was also a kind of a theme of childhood that came through very strongly in this object, this hobby horse, rocking horse, and the sense of vulnerability, maybe, or innocence that was implied by that. And I found that fascinating, that there was a dialectic in the show between a kind of the sophistication that you're describing, like a designer at the height of his powers reflecting on his own power, and at the same time the kid inside sitting on the hobby horse.
Well, this is a 10 feet high,
yeah, huge
rocking unicorn in bronze.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be a very strong motherfucker to get that thing to move. So yes, you can dream of being a kid, but if you want a bronze unicorn because you're so amazing, it won't do what you think it did if you want to go back to your childhood.
Gotcha. Okay. This is both things at once.
Yeah. You can't move it anymore.
Yeah.
It just became too heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
We want to have the most sophisticated childhood ever, but it won't be a childhood. It will just be a beautiful representation of it.
And there was also this pageant moment. This recalls some of our earlier conversation, but this kind of these lights that were embodied literally by these performers.
Yeah, this is a work that I made a while ago, and it's at the end it becomes a video, right? So it's a light that it's a projection of a light where the person that has it in the room, for his own fun and for his own excitement, he has a person, a slave if you want, or someone that he pays really well to just have there as a lamp. And so the way, when we made this video, we had this girl, because it's a loop of an hour, and we told her it's a loop of 2 hours. So the first hour she was just standing there, and we weren't even taping it. We started only taping it after an hour when she was really tired already. And so it's a really sick idea of a guy that wants his lamp to be personalized, and he really rents someone to do it. And yeah, it's what's interesting also, it's a little detail, but I have to say, because I love my work. At the right corner, you see a clock that magically, whenever you put it, wherever you put it, it's always on time, while it's a video. So it's kind of interesting what we did there. But you know, that's a really separate idea.
The dystopian and sinister image
that
somehow reflects also on the quality of design as
beauty and power. Beauty and power. Because at the end, you know, this is the over exaggeration of what is happening every day. And of course we don't want to see it, of course we don't sell it, of course we don't have to look at it that way every day. But yes, if we're honest, that's also reality. it is also reality.
So then finally, Marcel, there was this literal statement of self-reflection and portraiture, which was expressed in these mirrors, and then also in a couple of a kind of iconography that we're about to see.
Yeah, these are called dysmorphobia 1 to 6, I believe. Or, and what you see all these classical lines. You see a fantastic, beautiful mirror with a beautiful bevel on the sides, and it's all beautiful classical lines. But then at the end, it's like, yeah, it's not classical anymore, because it's like the back is at the front and the front is at the back. It's like it's this distorted, and it's it's in a way the how we look at ourselves. We look at the mirror because we think we get reality, but the most big mistake you make is to think that the mirror will give you reality, because the mirror will give you always the most distorted image of self-reflection. And yeah, it's kind of it's at least that knowledge, that self, that image that we have of ourselves, that is so damn disorganized and filled with dishonesty, at least for me, because it's my representation. It's hard to be honest. I mean, I've been very honest in my life, but maybe not always to myself, because that's the really difficult part. It's really easy to be no, it's not easy to be honest to people, but to be honest to yourself is really difficult.
Yeah.
And so we don't, none of us.
Lifelong struggle.
And then this is the last part of this exhibition, and it was also part of the exhibition. This is also video. What we did here, and it's a nice way to end it in a way. What we did here, we were in the Netherlands, so we bought a whole bunch of flowers, and we had them to dye. And then when the flowers were dead, we make super high-res photographs of them. And then with these photographs, we put together these faces, and then we made with video tracking, we made on my face all these dots, and so with video tracking now I can steer these dead flowers, and so then we made a music score, and these videos are moving on those music scores, and so basically it is how death can maybe come alive, because ultimately I think artists. I mean, the one thing we hate about life is that we die, and I think we all have it. We all go find ways to escape. Some people just get kids, but artists are worse. They're not only afraid of it, but they want to be loved not only today but forever. So they make work for eternity. They want to just make death come to life, and so it's kind of a weird thing we all want to do. I think artists want to just surpass their own existence with their work, and so this is a way to create life out of death. And so these are 3 videos of 3 different portraits that work well together, but also separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're in powerful ending.
Yeah. Well, we were at the end, so.
Yeah. We have a couple of questions. So if you don't mind, I know we're a little time, but I think it would be fantastic to hear a bit more from you and from our audience. So let me first ask a question from Joanna Delgado, who says, when you speak about clients, you're speaking probably about brands and companies. How do you integrate the actual users, the people that will buy the product in your design thinking? And who has the strongest influence in thinking about users, yourself as the designer or the brand?
Yeah, I think depending on the project, the user plays a more important role, right? I mean, sometimes you make products that people have to use. We made medical equipment. We made a pregnancy test. I mean, people buy it; they have to use it. So the user is you have to project the use and make it like seamless. There's other products where the user is less clear, and maybe sometimes you want to annoy the user a little bit because it makes the functionality more dramatic or more interesting or more I mean, we live in a world where functionality seems to solve all the problems, but I think we choose to have problems because we like them. If I, my daughter was in a quarantine last week, so every morning I bring her breakfast and every evening I bring her food. So every morning I've done. I went to my kitchen and I told myself I'm going to make a breakfast for a princess. So I take, I find all these elements together. I put beautiful little piece of food. I take a tray that's not used for it. I take that difficult tray that doesn't open well, but it's like I take the dramatic things to express my intentions. So to find the most functional, wouldn't have expressed my intentions to her. If you do a vacuum cleaner, maybe you want to do one that's really functional, but a lot of things are symbolic. A lot of things that we do are symbolic objects. To the extent that I think that functionality is super overrated. It is only important for the things that we don't want. So it's like vacuum cleaning. You want a very functional vacuum cleaner? You mean you want a clean house? So done. Okay, let's get rid of the vacuum cleaner, give her the clean house, right? Now, the cat in the window, the porcelain cat in the window that you like so much, the one with the little red tip on the tail. It's like the one that always falls over and you have to tell the kids not to come there. And if the dog from the neighbors comes in, you have to take it and put it in the drawer. That one does nothing. That gives you work that you need to maintain by dusting it off and making sure it's protected. That one, you love it. So for functional things, so for unloved things, functionality is super important because you will get less of it if it functions better. If you want less of something, make it functional. If you want more of something, don't make it more functional. I mean, make it more interesting. Make it more difficult. Because sometimes more difficult is really fun.
That's
really
great.
Fun.
It's such a great way of rethinking the relationship between modernism and functionalism too. But that's maybe a topic for another time. That's super fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just ask two more questions.
Thank you, John.
A lot, but Seth Nagelberg asks, I would love to know the answer to this. Can you describe your studio and office? Is there a workshop for experiments, prototyping models? Is there a collaborative process in the workplace? Can you tell us just about how you run the operation?
We have we've done a journey through my life, and so we started as me, myself, and I, yeah, very simple. And over time, it has changed. Currently, we are about 45 people. We have a very multidisciplinary team where I would say 30% is non-designers. They organize us, make the food for lunch, and they do the business part of the company. And then the other 70% is designers and creative people. And they work on text, they work on graphics, they work on interiors, they work on products, they work on materials. So these are now in kind of the departments organized. We have these 4 departments, you could say, and then we have a big space where we have the lunch, used to, and then we have a big library where we find all kinds of materials, as well for interiors as also for product design. We have a little workshop that we sometimes use, but we use it mainly for 2 things that I make myself, and there's some objects that I want to make myself, so that's it. And sometimes for material experiments, because if we really make prototypes, I mean, it goes in so many different directions. We've outsourced all our prototype. We always outsource, and we work a lot with companies that help us with that. Our world has become more digital than it used to be. So if we do physical things, it really is material aspects and like little technological proof of things. And I make some sculptures myself and so that's a little bit where we are. About 60% women, 40% men. We are, I think, 80% foreign and 20% Dutch. We are, on average, 36 maybe. Just saying. Marcel's not so old.
Okay, thank you. That was a great portrait. Hope to visit someday. Last question. This is actually from my co-host, Stephen Burks. Great question.
Hey, Stephen.
Yeah. Hearing you discuss the failure at the Mondrian, how do you evaluate success in your products and interiors, both as an individual and a company?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I once did also one of the early projects that I did in interior design. I did the VIP area of the Dutch pavilion of the World Exhibition in Hanover. It's a whole big mouthful of stuff. So the VIP area of the Dutch pavilion in the World Exhibition in Hanover, whatever. So one space. And so we're working on it, and we're excited. So it's amazing, it's wonderful. And then at some point, we get the news. Oh my God, the Dutch Queen is coming, and she's coming to the opening of this building. It's great, and everybody's so happy because not only is the Queen, but also she takes with her some people that are going to put cameras everywhere. So it's amazing, right? And so everybody's happy. And then a month later, it's getting even better. We get a big enthusiastic story that, for the opening, the Queen is coming, but she's going to have a lunch in the VIP area. Oh my God, in my area, there's going to be the Queen and she's going to have a lunch. It's amazing. So we're so happy. And then 1 month later, oh my God, the Queen has seen the space. She loves it so much. She wants to use it for her own private use for all the day. So she can have a rest there and she can have a private conversation with some people. And it's like, oh, that's what? So nobody can see that space?
It's just hers, yeah.
So my place is not going to be seen by all these people? And so I found out that, and it's really what I do. If I make something, I put it in the world, and I go there. Sometimes people know that I'm the designer, sometimes they don't. And I look in the eyes of people. That's what I do. And that's not only the way I decide whether something's good or bad, because something good or bad is if it reaches them and you have to do a bit more conversation. But my excitement, my passion is filled there. But it's so beautiful to see people interact with what you've dreamt up. And because, as I said, it's not the object, it's not the signs of making the object, it's where it reaches people when it really goes inside. And value lies whether what's inside has value to them. Yeah. That's where success really lies. Excitement and passion lies in seeing that it reaches people. And then if you have a conversation and you see it's meaningful to them, that's where real success is.
Amazing. That is a perfect place to stop. Thank you so much, Marcel.
It was my pleasure. Thanks, Stephen.
Quick announcement. Stephen actually will not be appearing on Friday as usual because here in the States, it's Thanksgiving weekend. So we're taking this Friday off. Our next broadcast will be a week from today. Next Wednesday, we'll have GT2P, the Chilean collective, who also show with Friedman Benda. So please come back for that. They'll be talking about their new project of Design Miami in the Miami Design District, among other topics. So come back in a week for that. Marcel, thank you so much for doing this. It was amazing. What an adventure.
It was my pleasure, really. Yeah. Thanks for all you guys listening in and hanging out with us. It was great fun.
Okay, stay safe over there. Thanks.